Week 5 was a week of absolute chaos in the ACC. And truthfully, if Georgia Tech didn't get bailed out by the refs with the non-call and the offsides, we're looking at even more wide open race for the ACC championship game than what exists right now. Now, before we get too far into things, I'm going to warn you up front. You're going to hear a few I told you so's in this episode. Because really, this is a week that gave us everything. It gave us shocking upsets. Some teams had statement wins. And some teams just had brutal losses, and it's going to completely reshape the conference picture that we had painted even just going back into last week. So let's get into it. We're going to start off by talking about teams that are rising up the rankings. And this is the first I told you so of the week. We're going to start off with Virginia. Last week, I said their offense was dangerous. A lot of people weren't buying it. I got flamed on TikTok for calling Virginia a dangerous team. But Chandler Morris genuinely just keeps proving he can carve defenses up. He's already over 1,200 yards passing on the year. UVA as a team averages nearly 500 yards a game on offense. Now, look, their defense is not championship caliber. I don't think this is a defense that holds up and gets them to an ACC championship game, but it is a team that I predict will absolutely ruin somebody's season before this year's done. Now, the next riser is going to be Duke. The Blue Devils offense has fully clicked. The turnover problem has been solved. And Darian Mensah just looks like the real deal. Against Syracuse, he went 22 of 28 for 268 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. And Duke racked up over 500 yards of offense themselves. Now, on defense, they also forced 3 turnovers, and that's 2 games in a row that they forced at least 3. And they won in demolishing fashion, 38-3. And that's the kind of win that makes you think that they're built for the long haul over the course of this year. Then I feel like every week I'm talking about Cal. They're the definition of a roller coaster team, and they've gone up and down the rankings, but they're sitting at 4-1 after handling Boston College last week. So I've got to give them some credit, and maybe that San Diego State meltdown was a fluke and just a freshman quarterback having a freshman quarterback game. And finally, we're going to talk Louisville. They spotted Pitt 17 points on the road, and then a switch flip for them. They didn't really look back after that. Miller Moss, excellent game, 339 yards, 3 touchdowns. Chris Bell had 135 receiving yards. And it showed me a lot how they responded to a tough environment. And for me, the Cards look like a legit contender. We'll see how that holds up, but that Pitt win gave me a lot of confidence. Now we're going to start talking about the fallers, and this is going to be the second I told you so of the week, and that's in Florida State. Let's go back to that Alabama win. People wanted me to crown them. A lot of the comments I got focused on them there, and I refused to do it. I actually kept them out of my top 3 just until last week, and I feel like even then, that was more about others slipping. But the loss to Virginia showed exactly why I didn't want to anoint them, and that's I feared inconsistency. It's a talented team for sure. They could still reach Charlotte, but the red flags are real and can't be ignored. Now, Georgia Tech is also going to take a small step back. And even with a win, but if you need the refs' help to sneak out of Wake Forest with a win, that's concerning for me. You can't just lean on Haynes King's legs forever. They have to be able to throw the ball a little bit more efficiently. And I fear Wake could have given the ACC a bit of a blueprint on how teams that are outmatched can hang around against Tech. Now, I also want to talk about NC State, and I can't sugarcoat this. It was an absolute disaster. It's the second straight week they looked a little soft and lost. It looked like they just thought they could show up and win against this Virginia Tech team, and they're not good. Virginia Tech's not a good team right now, but Virginia Tech came out and they punched them in the mouth, and it's a kind of loss that can tell you things about the culture and direction of a program, and I hope that's not true. And then lastly, we're going to talk about Boston College. The wheels are completely off. A couple of weeks ago, that double overtime loss to Michigan State looked good, and I felt some promise around them, but since then, it's been losses to Stanford and Cal, and I'm not seeing a lot of signs of life. So here's how the ACC stacks up heading into week 6 for me. And the tiers are going to change a little bit as to how we've been doing them. So tier 1, that's, national championship level of contention. And I still think Miami is the only team I'd trust to win a playoff game in the ACC. So they're going to be in that tier by themselves for now. Now, tier 2 is going to be a little different. That's going to be teams that can contend for the playoffs. Louisville, they're going to be at number 2 and Georgia Tech at 3. The Cards showed toughness at Pitt like we talked about, and the Jackets got lucky, but both of those teams could make a push for the CFP and could be players there. Now, Tier 3 is going to be renamed a bit. Those are more spoiler teams now. These are teams that could beat teams and knock them out of those top 3 or 4 spots. Virginia's going to be at 4, Duke at 5, FSU at 6. Cavaliers are trending in the right way. So is Duke. Seminoles trending down a little bit. Tier 4 is going to be what we call wild cards, and that's going to be SMU, NC State, Clemson, and Cal. And I just feel like it's because there's a high variance across the board on those teams. They're capable of winning or losing on any given week, and that puts them in a group together. Tier 5 is going to be strugglers. These are teams that have more bad weeks than good, I feel like now. Pitt, Virginia Tech, Syracuse, and BC. Some are sliding, some are clawing for position, but I don't have a ton of confidence in any of those. Then tier 6 is going to be the kind of the basement. UNC, Stanford, and Wake. I don't see a lot of life in those. And it's kind of weird to say that because Stanford's sitting at 2-0 in the ACC. But I think from a talent perspective, they're in to struggle week in and week out. I just don't feel good about them. Now, looking ahead to next week, there are 2 games that I think are going to tell us a ton about where this league stands. And the first one is very obvious. It's Miami versus FSU. Miami can slam the door on FSU's playoff hopes and, really have them starting 0-2 in the league. The Canes look like a freight train, and a win here just continues to build the case of them being a legit championship contender. Florida State, they're going to come out desperate. They really need this win to prove that they belong in the CFP discussion at all and really just gain some legitimacy that they really seek. The second game I want to talk about is Louisville versus Virginia. Both the teams we've talked about so far today already. UVA's offense, like we've said, is rolling, and this is their chance to back up that FSU win. They need to do that with another big one, and Louisville presents that opportunity. For Louisville, meanwhile, they really need this to stay credible as Miami's top challenger, one of the top 2. A loss here might potentially slide the Cards down into a further kind of bucket in our power rankings. But that's the ACC after week 5. Miami's on top. Virginia and Duke are surging. Florida State and Clemson still wobbling a little bit. And a whole bunch of teams that are trying to figure out who they really are. This week's slate of games is going to bring either a ton of clarity or even more total chaos. If Miami beats FSU, they're cruising towards Charlotte. If UVA knocks off Louisville, then the race gets flipped on its head for that second place spot, and it opens the door for a lot of teams. But either way, I mean, for whatever reasons, whether it's super competitiveness or the pure chaos, ACC is turning into must-watch football every week. So make sure you're subscribed. We'll be breaking it back down all again next week. I hope to see you guys there. Thanks for being here today.